This is the Conrad Alert. Civil defense information will be broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
For 5 years, 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada. Streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is May the 26th, 2024, and this is episode 451 of Workshop Radio. My guest this evening is Sean from MARK37.com. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I apologize for the delay here.
It's okay. No problem at all. We're doing good. And I was kind of excited to talk about the Degoogled phone and or the ghost phone. But before we go too far into it, can you give us kind of the background to who you are? Because I know we met over cigars and bourbon at the Mountain Readiness Festival, which was a hell of a time. And we decided it was a good time to collaborate a little bit. And I know your passion is entrepreneurship in general and now privacy in specific, but can you fill us in on kind of how you got there and where that journey brought you?
Sure. So I have a very eclectic, interesting, crazy background, sort of like you, with my hands in lots of different pots, but my full-time job has really been primarily focused in and around the hosting and data center industry. So for those who are listening who may not be familiar with what a data center is, it's really the massive warehouse of a building that's designed to withstand earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes and power outages and all kinds of crazy natural disasters. They have massive diesel generators. They have contracts with fuel companies that will come from multiple routes to try to get to them, all in the name of uptime to keep the servers up so that the brave new digital world that we live in can stay up and running. So that really was the industry that I've been in since about 2007, 2008. And then hosting as well. So cloud computing and hosting and helping companies do migration, serving as like an outsourced CTO for companies to help them through ads, moves, changes as they're moving from a hosted environment to the cloud, or from the cloud to a data center, or the data center to a bifurcated environment. So really, I have a very geeky background. And so that's the world that I was in. But what I learned in that industry is that the people who own the vast majority of this infrastructure that runs this brave new digital world that we live in are not people that really give a flying hoot about us. It's the same companies that own the vast majority of the pharmaceutical industries. I mean, you name it, right? So if you look at the food supply and you look at the very handful of companies that own like all the brands that you see at the supermarkets, literally those same companies, Vanguard, State Street, Berkshire Hathaway. There's another big one I'm missing. But regardless, all these handful of companies, they also own that whole industry. And so seeing the writing on the wall for me as a conservative and as a Christian, I knew that the agenda of a lot of the folks in Silicon Valley and the money in Silicon Valley was specifically to kick off anyone that was going to speak any kind of truth. So whether it was COVID, I mean, it's undeniable at this point, right, that they did not want any dissenting voices who were going to tell people about what was really going on with the pandemic. But the same goes on, whether it's 2A, Second Amendment companies were getting kicked off left and right, from GoDaddy, from MailChimp, from Salesforce, from all kinds of different, from AWS, from Google, from Azure, from all these different hosting companies. They just didn't want us to exist at all online, right? So with that as the context, I knew that if we didn't secure infrastructure, like literally the data centers, that it didn't matter what kind of applications that we built. We wouldn't exist online because they could literally just flip a switch and turn us off. So I spent a handful of years building a handful of infrastructure companies and helping to get started a handful of companies and evangelize for data center and hosting companies that were owned by constitutional conservatives that would fight to the death to defend our First Amendment, Second Amendment, all of our amendments are unalienable rights. So once that got up and running, the entrepreneur in me kicked in and said, okay, good. Now that that's up and running and headed in the right direction, what's the next major problem set that we need to solve for? And the reality is this is the next major problem set. And it's also the laptops and the desktops that people use, because the operating systems that run these devices are literally owned by the companies that are responsible for our current, what we call surveillance economy. So there is so much money being made in stealing our data on a regular moment by moment basis that they are making trillions of dollars, literally trillions of dollars, taking that data, reselling that data, mining it, using it against us, learning your behavior so that they can send you more targeted advertising. But really what they're learning is how they can trigger you. So from a marketing perspective, I think we can all appreciate how brilliant it is, right? If I know exactly how someone acts and reacts, what words trigger them, if I know their friend group, if I know their buying behavior because I've got access to all their financial records, if I know when they're scrolling on a page that they spend a fraction of a second longer on a certain ad versus other ads, I can then target things to them and be very accurate. So much so that people think that they have their mind is being read. They're like, technology's so crazy, man. They're reading my mind, that they're like throwing ads at me that I'm thinking about. And I'm like, no, bro. Yes, that technology exists that they can do that. But what's really happening is they know so much about you that they can predict what you want before you even know that you wanted that thing. So from that perspective, it's awesome. But we need to get the Googles, the Apples, the Microsofts, the Amazons out of these devices, because that is where the core of that mining is occurring. So I'll shut up, but that's my long story short.
Exactly. Sure. Yeah. So, okay, there's a lot to unpack there, but just about everybody has one or two of these at this point. So
right.
Where do you start? If everybody, like, number one, you talked about the surveillance economy. Why is that a bad thing per se? I hear what you said, but let's start with that. Why should we as freedom loving folk care about the fact that they're taking anonymous information and giving us suited ads or selling it to somebody else?
So fundamentally, it's about data sovereignty and data privacy, right? So if our First Amendment matters, like our freedom of speech matters, a lot of people say, well, why does your freedom of speech matter? I've got nothing offensive to say. I don't plan on hurting anybody. So what does it matter, right? I'm like, well, your freedom of speech does matter, because you should have the ability to have an opinion. Whether I agree with your opinion or not, you should be able to say it out loud in a public setting. Even if you offend some people, you should still be able to say that thing. Same thing with the Second Amendment. People say, well, why does my Second Amendment matter? Why should people have the right to bear arms if they're not planning on shooting anybody or not planning on killing anybody? That's ridiculous, right? I think we're learning here in the States, and other countries have started to learn, that your ability to fight back, because the criminals don't give a crap about what is lawful. They will find a way to get access to firearms. So it's not, those laws and those rules aren't really designed to prevent law-abiding citizens. They're intended to prevent the criminals. And it's the same thing with their data privacy, because people say, well, what does it matter that the government or these companies have access to all of this information when I've got nothing to hide, right? I've got nothing, that I care that they have access to. I fundamentally don't believe that these companies and our government, because by proxy, the U.S. government and our intelligence agencies have access to all of this information. And you saw this with the trucker, convoy that were going on, right? They went into their bank accounts and they froze their bank accounts. They had access to their live streams. The people who were at January 6th saw this. They knew exactly where they were, exactly what they were doing, had access to all of their logs of every conversation they had, the pictures that they took. They knew everything that was going on. That was because people really just don't even understand. So when you ask, well, what's the first step? The first step is people need to acknowledge I'm addicted, right? I have an addiction. This is something that I'm addicted to, right? And that's by design. DARPA, which funded a lot of this through the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars years ago, was very much involved with getting people using these things on a regular basis. So there's a very insidious design here when you really dig in and you go down some of these rabbit holes and you look at the players involved, where the money was coming from, because you always have to follow the money. And then you look at the ethos of the people behind the whole scheme. So when you realize that these devices are listening to you all day, every day, right? There's not a single person. I've traveled the country, just like I saw you about a month ago, every weekend for the last year and a half, almost every weekend, about every other weekend for the last year and a half. I've been traveling this country, going to different groups, conferences and whatnot. And I ask people, how do you feel about the fact that your phone is listening to you all day, every day? And people say, I don't like it. I'm not okay with this. Why are you not okay with it? Don't you appreciate the fact that you get ads, targeted ads? Or like, no, I'm not okay with this thing listening to me. There's not a single person who says it's not listening to me. Everyone knows that this thing is listening to them all day, every day. But people just don't realize that they have another option. If someone gave you the option and said you have an option between a phone that's going to listen to you all day, every day, and a phone that is not going to take all that information and feed it elsewhere, whether you agree with the ethos of Google and Apple and Microsoft or not, do you want to be feeding your data to these companies? The vast majority of people would say, no, I'm not okay with that, right? And the more we allow this encroachment into our day-to-day lives, into our pockets by these companies that are harvesting all this information, the more we're giving them the defense to say, well, you've already allowed us to do this with all these other areas. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to just put a TV, like literally Big Brother 1984 scenario, in your house that you have to have there. You have to have that there. For national security reasons, we want to be able to give you a message from the president or whatever, some kind of security alert that has to be tied into the system. Like for me, as someone who's pro-privacy and pro-liberty, that's not okay. I don't ever want to be put in that scenario, and I don't want to encourage that scenario. And I think people simply are not aware of how much these devices are infringing on their own personal privacy and sovereignty. And as people start to wake up, once you realize, so on that journey, first step is, yes, I have a problem. Second step is, okay, I need to now audit my life, my digital life. What does my digital footprint look like? What are the tools that I use? What are the applications that I use? What am I dependent on? And then you can start mapping a journey, because it's a journey. It's no different, Tim, than saying, hey, I want to grow my own food. You know, you don't just buy a tool, a raised bed or some seeds, and then all of a sudden you're a gardener and you're raising your own food, right? It's a journey. It's a process. You're going to constantly be learning along the way. Things are constantly evolving and changing. But you have to, the very first step is, okay, I have a problem. The next step is, okay, now I need to audit my life, my digital life, and figure out how am I going to escape this matrix that I've been trapped in and completely oblivious to. Now that you're aware of all the different ways that you're being tracked and monitored and screwed at the end of the day, and having your data sold by third-party brokers that you don't even know are stealing and selling your data, making money off of you where you're not making any money off of your own data. They're making the money off of you. Once you start to realize this game, it's like going to the grocery store and you start to look at the ingredients in the food that you're eating and you're like, I now know what this stuff is, and this is poison. Once you know that it's poison, you then have to make a very conscious decision. I'm going to continue to eat the poison, or I'm going to stop eating the poison and maybe find some alternatives that are a little bit healthier than the poison that they're trying to feed me. So that same dynamic applies in that once you realize that these devices, Google Android, iOS, Mac OS, Microsoft Windows, the Amazon Kindle devices, They are robbing you blind all day of everything about you, every action that you're taking, everywhere you're going, everything you're doing on these devices. You then have to make that choice and say, am I okay with that? Do I really care? Do I not care? But I think the vast majority of people do care. They just need to start saying, okay, I need to start this journey. But to your point, people they don't know where to start. They don't know where to begin.
So I took the first step, I guess, second step. I mean, I knew I know I'm addicted. I know that for sure. And then, I went through your audit on your website just to kind of figure out, yep, I kind of know what I'm dealing with. And, to back up a little bit, I kind of decided to take the next step, and I picked up a Degoogled phone. So to me, I would think that's probably that's a big step in some ways, because you're going from something you're comfortable with to something that you're not as comfortable with, because change, they say the only people that like change is a wet baby, which I understand. But how do you start with that? Because to me, I would think, at least before I started, that it's expensive, difficult, and I can't use what I want to use. So where do you start with that? Now, we can come back after and talk about some practical tips for everyday privacy if you're not ready to make that step. But I'm really interested in this because I need to figure out how to make this work in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the key concepts that there's a couple key, I would say top 3 concepts. One is that you don't have to change your phone number. You can keep your same phone number. In fact, you can take the SIM card out of your existing phone and put it into one of these new devices, and your phone number or your phone calls and your text messages will swap over to the new device. If you're
really,
yeah, yep.
Huh. Okay.
100%.
Anyway, that wasn't what I was using mine for, but that blows my mind. I didn't realize that at all. So sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. So these devices are what's known as carrier agnostic. So they'll work with any carrier. You literally just take your SIM card out, push it over. The only issue comes with some iCloud users and iPhone users. You have to then go into iCloud and basically say you're not going to be using the iMessenger service anymore, because if you don't do that, it's going to continue to route your calls and your messages to your Apple devices. So there is that little caveat, but that's one simple, easy thing. But around that, you can go fully ghost with your number. You can walk into a brick and mortar, T-Mobile store, for example, pay cash, get a new phone number without giving any identifiable information, which I think is what you did. Isn't that what you did?
I'm going to fill. Yeah, I'll give you a minute on what I wasn't able to get into a store. So what I did, and I'm sure it's not ideal, but I decided to go with Boost Mobile. Now, because it's really hard to be able to find a place locally where you can buy prepaid cards from a non-owned company, right? So I went in with cash to a Walmart and I bought a SIM card. I went into another Walmart and I bought some reloading cards with cash. I then logged on to the Boost Mobile site. You need an email address to sign up. I used the secure email address client that everybody uses. Can't think of the name. Yeah, Proton Mail. Thank you. So I signed up with Proton Mail. Proton Mail does not require me to give any identifying information. Then when I signed up for it, I just used a random address generator and voila, that was it. There was no identifying information whatsoever. And I may or may not have a Tennessee phone number now.
Yeah. Right. So that's another way to do it. And so from a security mindset, right, people have to start wrapping their head around the reality that your digital privacy and security is not much different than your physical privacy and security, in that there's paths that you can go down, right? You can be a black belt. You can be a new belt, right? Whatever the new one, like a white belt.
White belt, sure.
Whatever it is. So how far down that rabbit hole do you want to go? How ghost do you really want to go? Do you need a true burner phone? What do you need, right? And based on that, someone like myself or people on our team, we can coach you through that journey, through that process, so that you're getting out of this experience what you want to get out of it. So I think that's important for people to understand. So from a SIM card perspective, if all you want to do is use a phone that doesn't have Google or Apple running in the background all the time, mining your information, that's like step one, right? That's intermediate, or that's like beginner basics. The second key concept is any application that you use today can and will work on these ghost phones. You may have to tweak some of the settings, and you may have to install something called the Sandbox Google Play Services, which is basically it allows for certain applications that require Google Play Services to work on the device. There's a safe and secure way to set that up, and we walk people through that. It's in the user manual that we push out with the phones. And there's like a gajillion tutorials online. You could literally go on YouTube and find all kinds of different people walking you through how to get this stuff set up. So you can do that. So that's the other key concept is people say, well, if I use this type of device, am I going to have to give up a certain application? The answer is no, you don't have to. But the better question is, do you need that application on your device? And moreover, what data is that application pulling from your device and sending it to their own servers that you probably don't even know about? And so you have to start reading the user policy, the user privacy policy of these companies. And when you download the app, what's really cool with this Graphene OS operating system that we use, and same thing with Linux, if you're using Linux on your laptops. With Linux and with Graphene OS, nothing happens on your device without you getting a notification. So if you download a new application on the phone and you click, yes, I agree to the terms of service, whether you click agree or not agree, when that app starts to try to get access to your phone, to your contacts, to your GPS, to whatever, you're going to get a notification on the device. It's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to give this device, this new application, access to this? Are you positive that you want to do this? So that you now know what these applications are doing, what they need or want access to. And when you do, when updates come into the operating system, you get to choose if you want to do that update or not, which we highly recommend people do it. Unlike the world of Windows, where you're kind of playing that game with them, where they're trying to trick you into clicking like, yes, upgrade to Windows 11. You want to do these upgrades, but you're still going to be notified. So you get to choose if you want to go through that or not. So that's the other key thing that people have to wrap their head around and kind of relearn privacy and security, because the vast majority of bloatware and spyware and like crapware that gets installed on people's devices literally won't run on these devices, because you have to approve the installation of any new anything on the device. It doesn't just run in the background. So that's another key piece. So SIM card, just swap the SIM card. Any application can run on the device. And what was the third one that I was going to dig into that we get all the time? The last key concept is, because this is an open source operating system, there are literally at this point millions of people that use these devices and can see the code that's running on the devices. So people say, well, open source versus closed source, like, I don't really understand. Is open source good? Is open source bad? Like, I don't really get, why is open source good or bad? The way to wrap your head around this, open source simply means that you have access to the code. It's like having the blueprints to your house. I know where the plumbing is. I know where the electrical is. I know where every wall is, every door is. I can see the full schematics of the whole house. And if someone comes to me and says, hey, Sean, on your second floor, there's a window that's open, or there's an easy access point on that second floor into your home, you should fix that. I can then fix that, send out an update, show the community and show them exactly how I fixed that thing. And the community can come back to me and say, great fix, that did the job. Or the community can come back to me and say, that didn't do the fix. We're still able to break through and get through that door. And in the process, I can say, or if it was a great fix, I can say, you know what, I should probably do that fix to all the other doors. And the whole community can see if I did that or not. In the world of Windows, in the world of the vast majority of big tech companies, everything is closed source. So you have no idea what they're really doing in the background of these devices. You have no clue what they're doing. And when we come to them, when the community comes to them and says, hey, there's a hack or there's a exploit in the system, you should fix that. Microsoft will simply say, trust us. Thank you. We got this. We'll take care of the next update. And you really have no idea whether they took care of it or not. Now, there's a specific reason, one of the big reasons why these big tech companies operate in this capacity is because if they literally pushed out to the world what their hard code looked like, the real code running their system, we would be able to look at it and say, why are all these back doors in these systems that are getting access to not only other advertising agencies and brokers, but our own 3-letter agencies, FBI, NSA, CIA, you name it, right? That exists for national security reasons. These big operating systems for these big tech companies literally have deals with our government such that they have to provide backdoor access. Now, you can look at it from two different viewpoints. Prior to 9/11, people would have said, that's horrible. You shouldn't do that. Post 9/11, most people were like, oh, well, we need to do that for national security reasons. And now people have started waking up to the reality, well, that was a really bad idea, because not only is our own government and intel agencies using that information to fight the terrorists, but they're also using it now to fight us, who, by me simply having this flag here, right, I'm a terrorist. By me having my Betsy Ross flag out front, I'm a terrorist. By me being a traditional Catholic, I'm a terrorist, right? Check me off on like so many different levels. I'm a terrorist, right? So they can now say, we want access to as much of this guy's information as possible. And, he checks the boxes. So we'll go through the FISA process, or we won't, which if you look at what's going on in the United States and in Congress, where our FBI has admitted they've done tens of thousands of FISA, hundreds of thousands of FISA requests, where they just blew through the process and didn't even follow it to get warrants on everyday Joe citizens. Sorry, I'm going on a rant, and I totally
No, it's all right, dude. So, okay. So say in my instance for right now, I've been running two. Of course, this is the ghost phone here, and it doesn't come on very often. And of course, I'm in another country at the moment, so that's a whole nother ball game. So is that an intermediate way for folks to kind of get used to things? What do you think 100%. About that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question. That is a great question. What we highly recommend, there's 100% success rate with people who do exactly what you're doing. They get the device, they set it up first. So they go into the settings, they tweak the settings so that it does what they want it to do. They make sure that the applications that are on it are the ones that they need. If you've done the audit process where you go through your digital life and you say, okay, here's the applications I'm dependent on. Do I even have the username and passwords for those things? Which, not surprisingly, the vast majority of people don't. It just opens for me. I'm like, well, great. What happens if it doesn't? What do you do? Well, I don't know what I would do. I don't even know what my password is. I did it so long ago. So once you get the new device set up with everything that you want to set up, because these things are really just mini computers. Mm-hmm. If you give this thing access to the internet via Wi-Fi, or you can even do a hardline Ethernet line into the phone itself. They have adapters for that. You just set it up. You can set up all your apps, get everything working the way you want it to. The last step is taking that SIM card out and putting it into the phone. If you're moving from your primary line and moving your primary line over to the new device. But getting it set up first is key. Understanding how it works is key. Those who get the device and they're like, oh, great, I now have a new phone. They take the SIM card out, they move it over, and then they're like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. I'm like, well, we sent you like a mountain of training and videos and articles that would help get you learning how to do this thing and how to use this device, which is really not that complicated, especially if you're coming from a Google Android world. It should be very familiar to you. Those people tend to struggle. They get frustrated. Then they get swapping back to their old phone. And then they end up going back and forth and back and forth. But if you just spend the time to learn the device first before you make it your primary, your life is going to be a heck of a lot easier.
So let's start with, if I'm already an Android user, which I'm not, unfortunately, but if you're already an Android user, what differences are you going to see going to actually, maybe we should define a ghost phone first, because we've used that term in a degoogled phone. Let's define that, and then let's talk about the differences between.
Sorry, I was just talking to my
That's
daughter.
okay. You're good. No worries.
So another great question. So there's, for people who know what Linux is, right? So Linux is an open source operating system. It's been around for almost 30 years, 30 plus years, for laptops and desktops and enterprise servers. You know, as a tangent, like 75 to 80% of enterprise servers that run big companies are all running Linux. Why is that? Because the systems engineers, the network engineers, the geeks at these companies, they want control of the servers that run their company. They don't want to have Microsoft or some other company with core root access to the servers that run their business, right? So we're just taking that concept and bringing it now into the consumer level, right? So that open source Linux mindset, as it relates to the phones, is such that there's something called Android. Most people, when they think of Android, think of Google. Droid, you think of Droid, you think of Google. Google's done a great job of basically owning that name and branding that name. Android is actually an open source project. So it is the largest mobile open source operating system project out there, period, bar none, right? So it's a core framework for a mobile operating system to work. So that what that means is that operating system has the tools in place to talk to the cameras, the microphones, the wireless NIC, the network interface card on the device. All these different hardware tools and firmware can talk to the operating system layer. So that open source piece is now open for a lot of other people who can grab that and build on top of it. Google takes that open source Android and they build on top of it. And they add all of their bloatware and their spyware and all of their applications and all this stuff on top of it. So does about 20, 30 other projects. They build on top of this Android base. A lot of those companies keep it open source. And the most secure and private mobile open source operating system is one called Graphene OS. And people can do your own research, folks. It is bar none the most private, the most secure. So that uses that open source Android as the base, and then they build on top of that their privacy, security functionality, and tools on top of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay. And so a ghost phone or a degoogled phone would be running the Graphene OS based on the open source platform of Android.
Correct. So ghost phones specifically are running Graphene OS. There's other operating systems that you could use to technically use what's called a degoogled phone. Okay. So there's Lineage, there's Calyx OS, there's EOS, there's all these other different degoogle operating systems, like non-Google operating systems that you could use. But we focus on, for the ghost phone, Graphene OS, because we've done the homework. Graphene OS is the most private, the most secure open source operating system available. The unfortunate reality is that it only works currently on Pixel devices, which there's a reason for that, and there's a security and privacy reason for that, because these Pixel devices, the hardware and the firmware has certain features that allows Graphene OS to do what it does from a privacy and security functionality. And specifically, it's that notification piece that I'm telling you about, where every application sitting on this device is in its own little quarantined environment and can't talk to anything else on the device without you giving it permission to do so. That type of functionality is very unique to the Pixel device and Graphene leveraging those features on that device. So if you're coming from a Google Android world, you're going to be familiar with a lot of the functionality because it's still using that baseline Android operating system. I want to make sure I'm going to address the question. What was the question? Did I hit the question that you did?
Yeah. Basically, what defines a ghost phone, which I think we covered, and then what differences are a typical Android user going to see?
Right.
as opposed to like your normal, out of the
So,
box Google operating system.
So two things. One is you're going to get a lot more notifications, which again, that's a feature. That's not a bug. Some people will be like, "Oh, I'm getting a lot more notifications. It's kind of annoying." And I'm like, "Well, now you know what your phone is actually doing. Like now you actually understand what's happening on your device. If you'd rather remain ignorant, then go back to the world of using what you were using before." Literally, we've had nobody switch back because they got, so frustrated. Because once you set a setting, that's the other cool thing. Once you set a setting in a certain direction, it's going to stay in that direction. It's not going to refresh back to something after, the core OS changes, like what Google does and what Apple does and Microsoft do all the time, where then you have to go back into your settings and you have to reset the security and privacy features the way you wanted them because they reset it all to basically give them full access. So that's one of the key things. The other thing is from a application, you can download any application you want, and there's really cool app stores that exist that will actually obfuscate and basically anonymize you using even something like Google Play Store. So you can download an app from something called Aurora Store, and people can look into Aurora. We preload it on our phones. We preload about 25 different applications on the phone to get people up and running quickly so that they don't have to go and figure out on their own, like what's the best mapping application or what's the best document, so I can open documents and use documents on my device. So Aurora Store is an app store where you can basically, as an anonymous user, go on the Google Play Store, pull an application down, download it, and hopefully use it. If you open that app and it says this app requires Google Play services, then you have to basically go into the phone and you have to set up Google Play services on the phone. Ideally, you don't have to do that. And we would prefer that people didn't do that if you really wanted to be private and secure and keep big tech out of your life. Because when you do download Google Play services, you're basically giving that application and Google access to some of the data, but you get to choose what that data is. Again, you're going to get the notifications. This is where I say it's kind of like I can give you a firearm and I can train you on how to use that firearm, but you can still take that firearm and shoot yourself with it, right?
Right.
So I can give you the secure phone and the private phone, but you can still download Facebook, and then you can still give Facebook access to your contacts and your Wi-Fi and your GPS and all these things, and then Facebook is going to then have access to all this information on your device. And you can also set Facebook to have, to be running in the background if you wanted to, but you have the control now. You're specifically giving Facebook that access, and you should know that you've just given Facebook that access by having to go through the process. Yes. I want to do this. I want to do this. Right. So that's a key difference is you're now going to know what these apps are doing.
So with you mentioned once you set a setting, it stays there. So say, for instance, you wanted to install Facebook on one of these phones and you said, no, I don't want to share my contacts. No, I don't want to share my GPS location. No, I don't. If you select that, your phone will just keep it there going forward?
Yes. I mean, your phone will keep the app and your phone will keep those settings. Facebook may continue to ping you, just like it will and say, hey, are you sure you don't want it? Like if you're on the website, are you sure you don't want to download the app for this? Your experience will be so much better if you download the app, which they're really saying is we'll be able to harvest so much more information off of your device if you download the app. Please download the app. It'll so convenient. Your experience is going to be so much more convenient if you download this app. But they're really just saying, please download this app so we can sell more of your information and get access to more of your data.
You mentioned, I don't know if it was when we were talking in person or through an email, but you talked about adding, and something I've done a few times for my wife in the past, but adding a shortcut to your home screen to the website as opposed to downloading an app. Why would you do that? And why is that a better option?
Yes. If you're using a secure browser like Brave, for example, there's a bunch of decent ones out there. Firefox is another good one. But if you're using a good browser, your browser is your gateway to the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever website you're at has to clear all that traffic through the browser and then that browser to whatever screen or device you're using that browser with. So really that browser serves as a firewall. You can view it as a firewall between your device and what it is that you're seeing and doing. So if you go to Facebook, for example, you can still do a lot. You can't do everything on Facebook. If you're like a power user on Facebook, like I know you are, Tim, you can't do a lot of things just through the web interface if you're on the phone.
Sure.
Right? If you're on the desktop, you can do pretty much everything. But if you're on the phone, there's certain features and functionality that you won't be able to do if you have the app versus not having the app. But for most websites, if you don't install that app, which you don't have to do, you can just set that application or that website as a bookmark on your home screen. So I'll show you on mine, for example. You'll see this one that says Suku. I don't know if you can see it. And there's a little brave icon
right there. Little gecko or something. Yep.
So if I click on that, that goes straight. It's a crypto company. Yep. If I click on that, it'll go straight to that page of that site, so I can see the action that's going on. The price action that's going on with that. I've got that for weather. I've got that for the cost of silver and gold. I've got that for all kinds of different things. Right. That makes it so that I can get quick access to that information without having to download the app onto my device. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, do I need to have an app for this? Can I just access it through my browser? And if I can, you literally just open up the browser and you, through like tapping 3 things on the browser, go into settings, you go down to add to home screen, you change the name of whatever you want to call that icon to be, you click OK, that website will show up as an icon on your home screen, so you can quickly go to that from your phone without needing the application.
And it works. I mean, it's almost as quick or quicker than downloading the app. And I've done it. I do it for a lot of things, especially I've done it in the past for programs that don't have an app. And but I love that. So
or
what
banking.
about
Banking is a big one. Everyone asks about banking. Well, I need to use my app for banking. I'm like, well, do you take pictures of checks and send checks, deposit checks electronically through your phone? If people say no, then you literally do not need to have the app from your bank running on your phone. You can go to the bank through the website, and you can log in through the website, and you can do everything that you need to do through their website. You don't need the app downloaded on your phone. Banking apps, in fact, are some of the most egregious with the amount of data and information that they pull off of your devices, especially if you're using one of the big national global banks like Bank of America or Wells Fargo, or these big major banks. They're horribly egregious. Yes, they have a lot of good privacy and security tools and settings, but they are mining so much of your information and data. If you knew, you would would not be okay with it.
I want to ask you a loaded question. Can a person get a ghost phone that is under the iPhone banner?
No. Like an iPhone that is not running iOS, right?
Right.
So unfortunately, the way Apple has designed their iPhones, they are unappleable.
Right, which makes sense.
You cannot run a de-appled iPhone. You can, however, run a de-appled MacBook
really?
or iMac.
Okay.
So you can install Linux on MacBooks. In fact, we do it all the time for customers.
So, because this is the trail that our family has ended up on Apple. 12 years ago, when we were first starting to think to move to Alberta, we lived in a place where we really didn't have good cell service. I knew I was going out west. I needed a phone. So I went in and they had an iPhone on sale. I bought the iPhone. And then, of course, my family needed a new phone, my wife and then kids. So we just went with an iPhone, because what happened was they have that integrated iMessage and we loved it. And also FaceTime. Anyway, so 12 years later, we've probably bought and exchanged 25 iPhones, simply because that happened to be the first one that I got stuck with and it was hard for me to get out. So do you have any tips for people getting out of the Apple ecosystem, and is it doable?
It's totally doable to make that migration off. We have, I would say it's about 50-50 with our customers. Half of them come from the iUniverse and the other half are traditional Google users. It's a little bit. It's gonna, total transparency. It's going to be a little bit harder for you because things operate a little bit differently. But it is entirely doable. So what do you do with your old iPhones? They make for great target practice. I can tell you that.
In airplane mode, they make a really good camera. I will tell you that. So I've started using one of my old ones as a B-roll camera out in the workshop.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely do certain things like that. I would rather use it for target practice. And
that's good to know. I appreciate that.
And get a real camera. Like remember when
I sure do.
Get a real camera that serves the camera function.
I want to pick your brain on a few other security things as we go along here, and then toward the end we'll kind of come back into the ghost phone a little bit, if that's okay. Sure. Because I was watching, you had a video up on your website that talked about it kind of followed up from the audit of your different programs and things, and you mentioned things like appliances, gaming systems, security systems. I think there might have been something else. What can you, your car, right? What can you do about that? Is it something to be worried about, or that kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, the unfortunate reality is that most smart TVs have cameras and microphones on them, whether you know it or not, they do. Most people know it because they talk to their TV, and they, can change the channel just by talking to their TV or whatever. That being the case, if you have a smart TV in your bedroom, guess what? Some nefarious hacker asshole probably can tap into and see what's going on in your bedroom.
Dude.
Yeah, pretty gnarly.
It's like a Black Mirror episode. Yeah, it is a Black Mirror episode, actually.
It's real life, Tim. It's not an episode of this. It's real life happening today, right? No one has to sneak in and hide a camera in your room. They just hack into the smart TV that you already have there. That's totally doable. I can, I'll send you the link to the video of someone literally doing that. It's crazy. So that's for reals. You need to get these things out of your home and out of your house, or at very least learn and figure out where the camera is. And people say, well, how do I know that, Sean? Well, there's literally thousands of types of TVs that are out there right now. You're going to have to go online and search and find. Make, model of the TV, where is the camera on this TV? And it will tell you where it is, and you can put like a piece of black tape over it or whatever over that part of it. As it relates to the camera, you can pull, or the microphone, you can pull the back off of these TVs, and you can pull out that little piece of hardware. The vast majority of people are not going to do that.
Right.
They're going to be afraid they're going to break their TV. They probably will end up breaking the TV in the process. But guess what? There are things, called monitors. Remember these things that used to exist?
Yeah.
Right? You could use a monitor. Most people don't even watch cable anymore. They just watch stuff through the internet anyway. So if that's what you're doing, what do you need a smart TV for? You don't. All you need is a monitor, a big monitor that you can then use as a TV and have that connect to your home server or your laptop or via an HDMI cable or whatever, so that you can watch whatever it is that you want to watch in your house. Is it easy to install? Is it super simple? No, it's not. There are certain things that you're going to have to figure out if you don't already have it in your house. You want to hardwire everything in your home. You may need to swap out devices. The unfortunate reality is that corporate America and big tech has been so brilliantly good at convincing people that they need the most convenient, mindless thing possible, which has gotten us into a state of being where we're completely oblivious to all of the ways we are being exploited in our own homes, right? And again, it's no different than food supply. We've been completely hoodwinked into thinking that certain things that are healthy for us, that are really not healthy for us. Sure. And people just haven't asked the question, well, what's in my food? What am I eating? People aren't asking these questions. Well, what's in these tools? What's in these devices? What's in this technology that I've been, well, everything integrates so easy. I just install it, I log into my account, and then it integrates with everything. I don't even have to worry about it. It just works, right? I think that's been to our detriment from a privacy and security perspective.
Is there anyone out there, or is there a resource out there that has lists of dumb TVs or safe TVs or safe hardware at all yet? Or do you know of anybody doing that work?
Question. I don't have that link, but I will find one and I will send it to you so you can share it with your audience.
Absolutely. Sure. I just thought of it as we were. So here's a question then. I'm going to throw this one out here because this is something I'm thinking right now. So I'm down in my office, and if I look up, I can see my hardwired cameras. I've got 4 of them. 5 actually, that are plugged into a local DVR, which is fine. And I can run them completely without the internet, which I like. The problem is I wanted the convenience of being able to see the feed over the internet on my phone, which is fine. But so I have an app on my iPhone, and it's one of those sketchy Chinese apps like all those Amazon pieces of hardware are. Can I ghost phone? And will it make me aware of the shit? Darn it. There we are. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, you can hear me now?
Yep. You may want to ask that question again, but you were breaking up as you were asking it.
I think the NSA just heard us and decided they wanted to cut in for just a second. So, all right, I have the Chinese app on my phone that allows me to view my local DVR, which I can completely disconnect from the internet and still have hardwired cameras in my house. Could I take that sketchy Chinese app and install it on a degoogled phone? Do we know if it would make it at least make me aware of the app trying to do nefarious things, or not necessarily?
You would have to install another app onto the phone that's going to monitor the data streams that are coming to and from that app, that specific app. There's apps that do that for your Linux devices. There's apps that'll do this for whatever device you're using. So you would need a separate app that's going to monitor the traffic that's coming to and from that application. You can definitely install that app on the Ghost phone and use it.
Okay. Do you know what it's called?
Which one?
The app for monitoring, or do you know of a specific app?
There's various ones. So depending on how geeky you are and how much you want to tweak the settings and whatnot, I'll send you a link to those.
That would be good. That's cool. Okay. Just because honestly, those are the type of conveniences that I look for, is because I like to be able to monitor my area and that sort of thing. And it's nice to be able to log in, but I'd also like to know that it's not getting harvested and, chopped up and sold to the lowest bidder overseas. So,
well, the key there is, so you have a home server, right? That all this data is being streamed down onto?
Yeah, it's basically a dumb Android box that I've got it shared to at the moment that doesn't act. Yeah.
So then the key is going to be the security settings that you have between that box and those different devices and your device that you're using to access it. So you can lock that down, especially if you get a firewall in your home, and configure that firewall. So you can set your home. That's the other key thing. Like most people, they'll just take the router that their cable provider gives them, right, and then not even do a damn thing with it. They won't change the security settings on it. They won't even change the password. So it's still the stock password, which I guarantee you hackers know that. So people don't even realize that their home routers are being used for massive DDoS attacks, which is where you just flood a website with as much traffic as possible. So they're getting access to your home router, and then they're using your home router as a means to go attack a company and take down a company, because they've never changed the basic settings and configurations on the stuff. And people say, well, it's too complicated. It's too hard. I don't know how to do it. From honest to God, for me, I've become pretty kind of an asshole dealing with this. Because I'm like, this is like someone coming to me and saying, hey, I want to learn how to use a gun, but I'm afraid of guns. I really don't want to have to touch the gun. I don't want to have to learn how to load the gun. I don't like guns. I don't like seeing people holding guns, but I want to carry one with me all day, every day, just in case I need to use it.
Right.
I would say you shouldn't use a gun. That's not a good idea because you're going to hurt yourself and you're going to hurt the people around you. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to learn how to use this thing and be smart about it if you're going to use it, right? Or I'm going to give you a Nerf gun or a squirt gun, and you can just feel like you're protected with those types of devices. So my point is this: if you're going to use technology and you're going to use these things and you're going to have a home router, you're going to have all these devices connected and networked together, you should learn what the heck it's doing and how it's doing what it's doing. Because if you're not doing that, I guarantee you other people have and are, and they're using all this stuff against you.
And that's one of those, I joke, I don't joke, but I talk about it. It's the same, the entrepreneurial mindset. Go to YouTube University. It's free. I guarantee that every bit of that information you just talked about, figuring out, is my TV smart? Is my rotor safe? Is my Wi-Fi cameras, are they good? I guarantee you all that information is for free on the internet if you start digging.
100%. And that's I'm going to let people in on a big secret. Most IT support staff,
yep,
they don't know the answer to half the questions that you feed them, but they've become very good at knowing what communities to ask the question to get the right answer and searching online. That's what they've become really good at doing. So we like to think that these IT support people, some of them, frontline IT support people, especially with the carriers, are frigging not the brightest people on the planet. If you work for one of those companies, the frontline, I'm sorry, but they pretend like they have answers to things that they have no clue what they're talking about, and they steer people in the wrong direction all the time. But I digress. That's all you need to know how to do, is learn how to find the answers to these solutions and problem sets yourself online.
When I worked at a computer shop quite a few years ago, and I asked the dude that when I started, I said, I've never really fixed computers before. How do I troubleshoot? And he says, you just keep trying things until you figure it out. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. He goes, no, I mean it. He goes, the more you do it, the more wrong things you'll do, and the quicker you'll get at it. But I was like, oh, that blew my mind. I love that.
Yeah. Some people are like, well, give me the book. I'm like, really? The book is not going to really be able to help you. I mean, yes, it may help you troubleshoot some things, give you some baseline understanding, but until you touch it and feel it and play with it and use it, you're really not going to learn, to your point. I mean, that's why we have a mountain of content on our website. If you go to our forums page and go to All About Ghost Phones, we have like 100 different Q&As that people have asked us about everything you can imagine with these phones, so that you could find an answer quickly. And then there's great communities online. I mean, our customers are amazing. We have some of the best customers. They all want to help each other. They're all in it together. We're all on this journey together. We have a great Telegram channel, just like your Telegram channel.
Nice.
Great people. People throw in questions in different stages of the journey. Some people brand new to this. Some people have been around it for many, many years. But everyone's helping each other, kind of, rising tide, raising all boats.
I got a couple of questions and comments from the audience here I want to ask you, and then maybe we'll kind of wrap up with some of the services you offer and that sort of thing, if you're good with that.
Sure.
All right. So first off, Chris wants to know, Chris Dixon, or the Dixon way, can you de-Google a Chromebook?
I'm almost positive you can install Linux on a Chromebook. We haven't had to do that yet.
You're going to be an expert tech support dude right now by knowing where to look for the answer, and that's what I love. So
all I'm doing is going online saying, "Can you install Linux on a Chromebook?"
That's okay, because I want to say that I have seen that done, but I think certain ones get locked down better than others, but I think they can be stripped if I remember.
Yes, short answer is you can do that.
Okay, that's good to know. And the smart ass that Chris always is when you're talking about putting tape over the camera in his bedroom. He said some hacker dude would be scarred for life seeing my bedroom. So there you go. Now, this one's here is a bit of a joke, but I'm going to share a little thing here. So Ed Celio says, tell me again why I need Wi-Fi in my refrigerator. Now, the funny story is tonight was actually the first time since I've been home that I hooked this up to Wi-Fi, my Ghost phone. When I turned it on to connect to it, I saw my Starlink, I saw my home Wi-Fi, I saw the fridge upstairs, and I saw my wife's mop in the kitchen. She has a Tineco powered mop that broadcasts a Wi-Fi signal. Why? I'm not sure. I need to look into that. Yeah. But that was a little bit weird.
I would throw that thing out.
I know. So what do you do? Just try to buy dumb devices overall, do you think? Or
yeah, I mean, it's this, Internet of Things. I mean, remember when the Internet of Things was like this big thing and everyone was so awestruck about it? What AI is today, the IoT was what, 15 years ago?
Absolutely.
Years ago?
Yep.
All that is done is created all these different devices. And this is fact. I was in Silicon Valley. So I'd spent 1998 to 2016 in Silicon Valley, working, living, growing a family, all these things. Was up and down Sand Hill Road various times. Sand Hill Road is where all the venture capital and private equity firms live and exist. If you were a startup company, no matter what you were trying to sell, and you didn't have what was called a data story, no matter what you were trying to if you wanted a mop, if you had this brand new mop that was the most amazing mop ever, it was going to be able to clean things like nothing had ever been cleaned before, but you just needed some capital to go start and get this thing running. If you didn't have a story around how you were going to mine data, they did not give you money. They would say, come back once you have a data story. Once you could figure out how to take that mop, make it an IoT device to start collecting and mining data, right? So this has been going on for a long time. And the unfortunate thing is most of these mops are dumb, but they can be like your home router. They can be used in nefarious purposes and for nefarious activities. And they are, unfortunately. So you really have to start, again, we have to get ourselves into a mindset of privacy and security and start asking ourselves, do I need some of your listeners, and you may even have one of these. My father-in-law, who I was literally just at, he has one of these. He's got a smoker, right?
Yep.
Home smoker cooker that he can remotely log into and change the temperature on while he's like not at home, right? So he can literally change the temperature of his home smoker grill, while he's not home. I'm like, that's cool.
I know it is.
But do you need something like that? Do you really want to have your smoker connected to the internet? Does it really need to be connected to the internet? Probably doesn't, right? That's one of these convenience things where every time I hear someone explain something like that to me, I just think of the movie Idiocracy, and I think of the movie WALL-E and all the people sitting in these like bubble chairs that they don't have to do a damn thing for themselves because everything is just taken care of for them. Like, if that's the world we want to go down, sure, then let's get the wireless connected smoker and just make everything connected and not give a crap.
Have you heard anything about LED smart bulbs? I have not. I don't, if this is something that piques your interest, or I can get Jimmy Slim here to elaborate, but I don't know if you have.
About them being like collecting data and mining data themselves and becoming like their own home little network. Yes, I have heard about it. I haven't dug down the rabbit hole on that. I haven't had the time to, but it would not surprise me in the slightest, especially because they're mandating that people now, use LED light bulb. You can't go to the friggin' hardware store and find a regular old school light bulb.
They were banned up here ages ago, and then it took a while for them to be like, oh shit, there are some needs for light bulbs that actually create heat, and they didn't really smarten up, but they relaxed it ever so slightly. They take away the whole loaf of bread and then they throw you back a crumb and they tell you, hey, you should be thankful, buddy.
Right.
Chris Dixon says, like we've been told before, we won't know when it happens. We'll be too busy saying, man, that was convenient.
Yeah.
That seems like the modern version of Big Brother, doesn't it?
100%, man. This is where, and I know you subscribe to this. Like, I'm a big believer that we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. We
Absolutely.
have to start putting ourselves into situations where we force ourselves to try to learn hard things and relearn hard things. And I'm dead serious. If you're the type of person that says, well, I'm a tech neophyte, I'm an idiot when it comes to technology, I don't know how to do any of this stuff, I'm afraid of tech, either you change your mindset or literally get rid of all the technology that you're using, because you are more of a threat to yourself and your family and your friends and the people around you by having that mindset and by using these things without knowing what they're actually being used for, right? People really have to understand this. And it's, unfortunately, per that comment, it may come too late for some people.
Absolutely.
Right? This is why I literally left a very great job, paid a lot of money, and I was doing really well for myself because, for me, in my testimony, God spoke to me and said, this is what you need to go focus on. I gave you all of these world experiences and I have all these connections so that you could go in this direction and start preaching and speaking to people about why they need to become more educated and aware of these things. And I'm telling you, I'm not doing this for the money, because there's very few people on the planet right now who are willing to do the hard thing and make this switch happen. They're just so stuck in this convenience mindset. So we keep trying every which way we can to try to get people out of this. Yeah.
I put my money where my mouth was. I didn't come to you and say, Sean, hey, I'm an influencer, give me a phone. I wouldn't have done that anyway. That would have been a dick move, but I'm just saying. So I spent, I was close to $500, I think, or whatever it was on this guy, which was cool. I was worth every penny for me. So let's kind of talk about, so if somebody wants to come to you, what's the onboarding process? How can they get a little bit from you for free? And then how can they start throwing money at you if they're like, holy shit, I really need to support this dude or whatever, go into what you do exactly.
Yeah. So MARK37.com is the website, MARK37.com. If you're still kind of curious and you want to have a conversation, I spend my days talking to people about their digital privacy and security. You can go on the very top of our website. It says free consult. Click on that. And you can basically sign up for a free 15-30 minute consult, spend time with me doing that audit of your digital life. And I'll kind of start pointing you in the right direction and steer you towards resources that you can use and start digging into. For those of you that kind of already know what direction you want to go, all the products and services are there on the website. We've got one that's called Linux as a Service, where you can actually send us your devices and we'll basically load a flavor of Linux on the device for you and send it back to you. We definitely want you to back everything up ahead of time before you send it to us. I don't want to be liable if something happens to your device in process and you lose your data. That's an option. We sell laptops, what we call Ghost laptops, which are really just laptops running Linux. Ghost tablets, the Ghost phones in different flavors, sizes and shapes. And then we also have a Ghost Life service. So I will work and my team will work one-on-one with you and get you fully migrated over. So that means your phone service, your emails, your text log, everything, your whole digital life migrated over, and you will be basically living in a more sovereign, digitally sovereign domain within 30, 60 days, depends on the person. We have the same thing for a home. So we were talking about home firewalls. We were talking about TVs, your cars. Your cars are really just mobile tracking devices. That's really all they are. The second you plug your phone into your car, when you bought or leased your car, you literally signed paperwork that gave the manufacturer of that car ownership of that data and the ability to sell your data. So when you say, oh, yeah, I want to use Android Auto, I want to use Apple Auto or whatever they call it, iAuto, you're giving the manufacturer the ability to take your data and sell your data. And that's a real thing, because I know someone who literally had their son borrow his car to go drive the car. And he went over, he was driving pretty fast in his dad's car. And he got an email from his insurance company saying that they were going to start charging him more to add the son as a driver on the car. How did they know? Because his son wanted to listen to his music in the car. And so his son added his phone to the car, his father's car. And so the insurance company was then notified that there's another person in the car. Now, the individual should have just said, my son was in the car with me. They would have had no way of proving that otherwise.
Wow.
But that's how much they're taking this data and wanting to use this data. Look, this is all going towards a digital ID.
Sure.
State. This is where it's all headed towards. They want digital ID, they want social credit scores, and they want central bank digital currencies, and they want to tie all this together, right? So you have to understand this is the path that we are headed on. And if you say, hell no, I don't want to go down that path, that's not where I want society to be headed, then you have to start making these decisions and starting the journey. So you can sign up on the website. We can have a conversation. I can walk you through what options you have. We can get your life, your home, start with a device. This is, start with a device, start to learn how simple this can really be, and then go baby steps from there. If that's what you want to do, you have all those options.
And I'm going to do a full review video once I've kind of jumped into the ghost phone lifestyle a little bit better. But I think we're going to set up some sort of affiliate thing at some point 100%. As well, are we?
Yep. In fact, I may even already have one set up, to be honest with you. I think I already did.
Okay.
Let me just double check because I want to tell your people I should have.
Yeah, that'd be great. So so guys, so you don't miss it. It's MARK37. And for the longest time, I was like, MARK37, what is that? And so then there's a Bible verse on his website that ties into it. But MARK37 also looks a lot like market, which I saw on their website. And I thought that was pretty damn genius. So I'm a big fan of multiple meanings behind things for sure.
Yeah. I was looking for something kind of like the FedEx logo, where once you see the arrow in the FedEx logo, you can't unsee it. And for those who don't really know what I'm talking about, if you look at the X and the E and the X together actually make an arrow, and you're like, oh, that's genius. It's the same thing with MARK37, although we figured that out, that MARK3 being an E and a 7 being a T, spelled market, long after we chose that as the name. But it doesn't look like I did. I'm going to set one up right now so people know. If you put in Toolman,
okay,
we'll be able to track things, and then your listeners will be able to get a percentage off, but we'll talk offline about.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, no worries. I just wanted to make sure everybody was set up for it. And it'll be something you'll hear more about coming down the road, because I've been personally, like I mentioned to you on multiple occasions, looking to partner directly with brands by cutting out Amazon, for instance. So this is a pretty good segue into that, but I really do. I want to partner with folks who I sat down and drank bourbon with, whom I've smoked cigars with, and who I believe in what they believe in. And I think we're fairly like-minded. So that's what I've talked many, many times on this show and with folks in person about creating a circular economy. And the way to do that is to throw money and spend money with folks who believe what you believe, and to get it out of the tax cycle, at least for a step or two, Yeah. So I appreciate what you're doing, Sean. This is awesome, man.
Well, right back at you, man, Tim. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. With all the time, energy, and effort that we put into this, the fact that this is starting to finally resonate with people, smart people who are headed in the right direction, who are investing the time and the energy and the effort to do the type of work that you're doing. We're just blessed to be able to do what we do.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. If you want to hang in the background, I'll be right back with you, and I'd love to have you on again sometime.
Sure. 100%.
Sounds good, man. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for being patient tonight. When we're live, this is the Tonight Show, not really, but we run into hiccups here and there. So thanks for being patient. I hope you really enjoyed this. We will definitely bring Sean back on. Maybe we'll do more of a Q&A session the next time. You guys can throw some stuff at us before we start. But, I talk about being able to maintain your properties and that sort of thing as a less than sexy side of prepping. And Sean talks about digital privacy and digital sovereignty as a less than sexy side of prepping. And it's every bit as important, and it's every bit as overlooked as something just like home maintenance. So guys, throw some support at him. Do a 15-minute free consult, whatever it is, or just ask some questions. He's got some really cool resources on his website that have got me really thinking, do I really need a mop with Wi-Fi, right? So anyway, I appreciate you guys for hanging out. Thanks for coming by on a Sunday evening. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.